Hello class, this is a sample problem of the Keynesian model with taxes and imports. Because there are taxes and imports, you can't solve this one graphically. The only way to solve it is with the algebra technique. You're given your setup condition over here. So basically this is just aggregate demand, which is C plus I plus G plus XN. Aggregate demand equals aggregate supply. And in the first step, all you do is carefully take all these givens, weave them into this expression over here, and then begin to simplify. It'll look really nasty at first, but eventually it'll simplify down to a very simple expression. You'll get a value for equilibrium income. Once you know what equilibrium income is, you can calculate how much money was raised in taxes because you're given the tax rate. You can talk about the government's budget since you know government spending, and then you'll know taxes collected. You can talk about the trade balance since you'll know imports and you'll also know exports. And then in this particular problem, you're also given a full employment level of income. Chances are that will be different from the equilibrium that you find. And then using the Keynesian concept of a multiplier, you can figure out how much extra government spending would need to occur to bring equilibrium up to full employment. Okay, so let's get started. Oh, one last thing. If you'll notice in these problems, sometimes the import function is given as gross income. See, in this case, 362 plus 0.04 times y, that's gross income. But on some sample problems that you'll see out there online, the import function is given in disposable income. So those aren't errors, they're just two different kinds of problems. So there's nothing to memorize. Whatever the import function is given in is what you should use. So in this particular problem, it's gross income, and that's how I'm going to write it, and that's how I will solve it. Alright, so let's get started. So consumption, of course, is autonomous spending, which is 123, plus the marginal propensity to consume, which is 0.8, times disposable income. I know it's disposable income in this case because I have taxes, so that's YD. Plus investment is just given as 365, plus government spending is given as 600, plus net exports. So net exports is equal to exports minus imports. So that would be exports, which is 450, minus imports, which is 362, plus 0.04 times y. And that whole mess equals y. I ran off the page. I don't know why it won't show this, but there should be an equals y over there. Did it come up that time? No, but it should. Okay, so now let's try to combine some of these terms. So using my calculator, 123 plus 365 plus 600 plus 450 minus 362, I get 1176 plus 0.8 times YD minus 0.04 times Y equals Y. So let me check my work one more time. Yeah, 1176 plus 0.8 YD minus 0.04 Y equals Y. Now the next thing I want to do is I want to try to resolve this issue about YD, and you should know that disposable income YD is equal to your regular income minus taxes. Maybe I can work in this little space right here. YD is equal to gross income minus taxes, and of course taxes in this particular problem are 20% of income, so that's 0.2 times y. So YD is simply 0.8 y. Okay, so now I'm going to erase that so I can have the space. So I know that YD is equal to 0.8 y, so I have 1176 plus 0.8 times, now instead of writing YD, I'm going to write what it is, which is 0.8 y minus 0.04 0.4y equals y. Okay, so that's 1176 plus 0.8 times 0.8 is 0.64y minus 0.04y equals y. Combining the 0.64y and the 0.4y, I get 1176 plus 0.60y equals y. Subtracting 0.60y from both sides, I get 1176 equals 0.4y. Now here's that place where I kind of add that step that probably most of you wouldn't bother to do, but I think it's a good idea. I'm going to divide both sides by the 0.14, but I'm going to write it a funny way. 1 over 0.4 times 1176 equals y. Now I'm out of space at the bottom of the board, but then I can now take the 1176 divided by 0.4, and I get equilibrium income of $29.40. Equilibrium income of $29.40. Okay, now from that I can figure out lots of stuff. I can figure, for example, how much taxes were raised. So taxes are simply 20% of the equilibrium income. So 29.40 times 0.2, that gives me taxes of $588. I can also figure my imports, because my imports are 0.04 times my gross income plus 362. So I get imports are 47960. And now I can answer a bunch of questions like, tell me about the government's budget. Well, the government spent $600 and the government collected $588 in taxes. So the government has a small deficit of, what is that, $12? And then I might ask you, well, tell me about the trade balance. So we exported $450 of stuff, and we imported $479.60 worth of stuff. So we have a small trade deficit of the difference in those two numbers. Then the last thing it asks you is, it might ask you about the actual versus a theoretical multiplier. The theoretical multiplier comes from here, and I hope you can see that it's 5. The actual multiplier is always this weird little term that sits on that next to the last line in your problem. It'll always be 1 over some fraction. So in this particular case, 1 divided by 0.4 gives me an actual multiplier of 2.5. The actual multiplier is 2.5. Simple theoretical multiplier is 5. Sometimes there's a discussion question that asks you, hey, how come the actual multiplier is less than the simple theoretical multiplier? The reason it's less is because taxes erode the multiplier. Every time a person gets paid, in the simple theoretical story that Keynes tells, they take their paycheck and they go out and they spend it. But now, when we've added taxes, the first thing that happens is 20 cents out of every dollar is taken from them, and then they only spend 80 cents out of every dollar. So that erodes the Keynesian multiplier. Also, the multiplier is eroded a little bit by imports, because you can see that every time you get paid, you're going to spend 4 cents out of every dollar, 0.04, 4 cents out of every dollar on imports. And in the Keynesian view of the world, imports don't stimulate our economy. Okay, so the last question would be, given that we have full employment at 3,400 and we're sitting over here at equilibrium at 2940, how much extra government spending do we need to bring equilibrium up to full employment? And there's a little formula that goes like this. The change in aggregate demand, or in this case the change in government spending, times the actual multiplier will give you the change in income. So the change in income we need is the difference between 3,400 and 2,940. So the change in income we need is $460. The actual multiplier was 2.5. And so now we can just solve for the change in government spending. So I get the change in government spending that we need to bring the economy up to full employment is only $184. So another good discussion question would be, well, how can a measly $184 get the economy to move by $460? See that? And the answer in the Keynesian model is, well, each time those workers got paid, they went out and spent 80 cents out of that money, and that generated employment for somebody else, who in turn went out and spent 80% of their money, and so on and so on. So that's the Keynesian model, and I hope this little sample problem helps you understand how to work them. Good luck.